Hello everyone! I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. If you are new, I'm really grateful for your support and I hope you're enjoying all the videos. I have more than 900 something videos on INFJ stuff, and you might not relate to all of them, but they're all a good way to get started on self-knowledge, which is one of our primary quests as an INFJ. And in this primary quest as an INFJ, one of my INFJ friends who is obsessed or interested in autism and ADHD, and she's a psychologist in the UK, she diagnoses people who might have autism or ADHD, and she kind of does like a questionnaire, and she figures out, yeah, you have it or you don't, etc. And recently, maybe a couple of months ago, she told me, like, I don't know if you're interested in this, but I think you have both. That you fall on the spectrum, basically. And she was directing that towards me. And, it's kind of interesting because I would always watch videos by people who had autism or ADHD, or I would read memes online about it, or just comments on Instagram. And it would always kind of resonate with me, but I was always like, but, I had this kind of typical idea in my head what an autistic person or a person with ADHD looked like. And I didn't kind of fit into that paradigm because, I was able to function pretty normally, and, I was able to adapt myself to society in a way that perhaps showed me that it was okay. Maybe I'm not on the spectrum. But then I started reading a lot more about it because I realized that what she said as well is that particularly women do not fall on the spectrum in a typical way as all other, as men would, particularly as men would. And also that as women, we have many coping strategies and we have many masking strategies that we develop when we're quite young. And you might relate to this even if you're not autistic or if you have ADHD, because, as an INFJ even, I've learned so many coping and masking strategies that I've kind of used since I was a child, because I had to fit in, because I didn't fit in and I had to make sure that I did so that I wouldn't stand out too much, because as soon as you stand out, that peg that stands out is the one that kind of gets smashed on. And so I knew that if I stood out, I would get smashed on. And so I had to make sure that I learned how not to stand out, how to be a square peg in a square hole, instead of a round peg in a square hole, or pretend at least, right? So no one noticed that I was a round peg in a square hole. And so, as I said, I started reading more about it, and I started learning more about it, basically just reading blog posts and watching YouTube videos and reading Instagram posts, of course, not anything special. And you've done this previously, I'm sure, as well. And I realized little by little how many traits that I had that I kind of assumed were just a little bit not typical, just a little bit out there, but were actually related to my ADHD or my, the spectrum that I was on. And I'll give you a couple examples just to kind of give you the gist of it. These are easy examples, and I didn't realize it was related to that, but one of the things that I have a really hard time with is having stuff in drawers or in cupboards that are closed. I need to see everything on the surface of a table, or I need the drawers open so I can see everything. Like, I don't like it being closed off so I don't know what's inside of it. Because as a person with ADHD or whatever it's related to, I don't know if it's autism or ADHD, I think it's ADHD. If I don't see it, I don't know that it's there, and I forget about it and I don't use it, right? And so I know that about me, and I've known that about me for ages. And so whenever I go to any new place, everything that I need, I put it on tables, scattered around. I wish I could show you pictures of my place, because literally everything that I use very often and I need and I want and I want to see all the time, is on tables, is scattered around. And I have lots of drawer space and I have lots of cupboard space in this place, and usually I do, but I never have anything in there. They're always empty. And unless I put stuff in there that I know I'm never going to use, like suitcases, once I've emptied out a suitcase, I'll put it in there. Or like winter clothes when it's summer kind of thing, I'll do that. But if I'm using the item and I need it to be visible. I need it to be on a surface where I can see it constantly, so that I don't forget that it exists, because I will forget it exists, and then I will never use it for 2-3 years until I open the drawer and realize, hey, what is this? Oh my god, I forgot I had this. And this is a typical trait of people with ADHD. I had no idea. I mean, not typical, I would say typical as if, anything is typical in that neurodivergent manner. But it is one thing that kept on coming up when people were talking about ADHD. And I was like, whoa, okay, really? That's weird. I did this with them without even thinking about it. And it's a trait. Another thing that, I was actually quite surprised by as well is that ADHD and people with ADHD and autism constantly, the people on the spectrum constantly talked about the fact that they do not miss the people in their life once they're out of sight. So not only does it work for items, but it also works for people, situations, anything. If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. We're not thinking about it. We're not talking about it. We forget about it. We forget it even exists. And so one of the things that constantly people with ADHD and autism have to tell their loved ones and people around them is that I will forget to message you back. And I hope that's something that you get used to, because if it's not, we might see the message notification, but then we might forget about it and then it's gone. Like if we don't go back to that app, we'll never see it again. We will never even think about it. We forget about the fact that you even exist and that we need to message you back. And this happens to me over and over and over again. And I thought it was because I was just a careless person. But it's actually because of the fact that out of sight, out of mind really works to a degree when you're on the spectrum. So that was again another thing that I used to berate myself for. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible person. I'm not caring. I don't care about people. No wonder I'm single. La la la. And then I realized, it's not because I don't care about people, because I do. And that was what was kind of causing me to feel this kind of incoherence. I was like, but I do care about people, but I forget that they message me. I forget to message them. What is this all about, right? And so this is what I realized. And I mean, there's like a bunch of other things, like, people with ADHD are afraid to look at their bank accounts because they have no idea how much money they spent. They have no idea where they stand. And this kind of fear takes them over. And for the longest time, until I took care of my finances and kind of settled them well, I was in the same boat. I would be so afraid to look at my bank account. I'd be afraid to look at my credit card statements, because we have this impulsive, spontaneous nature, or this part of ours that does randomly buy things without thinking about it. And I know I still do that. Thankfully, I'm usually buying things that are, quite cheap, not in a cheap quality way, but like are not so expensive, and so it doesn't affect my finances so much. But sometimes I do have moments where I'm plopping down $300 for some item that I'm like, I'm never going to use this. Why am I doing this? Thankfully, mostly I can return it, but I've kind of noticed that about myself, and I've fixed it. So now whenever I have this urge to buy something that's extremely expensive, I'm like, do I actually need it, or am I in this phase where I'm impulsively buying something because it's something I do? And so as I started kind of learning about this diagnosis, the self-diagnosis, if you call it, because my friend did diagnose me, but she never did a questionnaire on me. She's just watched hundreds of my videos and spoken to me, and she knows what I'm all about. And she also said, kind of take it with a grain of salt, because it might just be that you're displaying some of the symptoms but not all. And so read up on it. And of course I did, because that's what INFJs do. We get obsessed with a topic and we read. And as I said, I started discovering all of these traits of mine that I just thought which weren't typical, neurotypical, and which were a little bit out there, but I assumed it was just part of my quirky personality. And yeah, it is part of my quirky personality, but it kind of is related to that ADHD autistic part of me, or bit of me, or whatever you want to call it, So I wanted to share this video with you not because I wanted to say, look at me, I have another label that I can put on myself, but because I realized that even though I had accepted a lot of myself, because I had kind of learned a lot about myself, and I realized, oh, it's just this thing I do because I'm an INFJ, or this is a thing I do because I'm Enneagram this or that, or this is a thing I do because I'm a Virgo, whatever kind of label I put on it. I was able to accept all of these different random parts of me because I was like, well, this is me, and these are all the unique, beautiful parts of me, and it makes up me, and I love me, right? But there were also these random parts of me, this bits related to my ADHD and autistic part, that I was like, I don't actually understand why I do these things, like, why can't I just check my bank account without having a panic attack or an anxiety attack? Why do I feel so much anxiety all the time and feel like I'm missing something, even though there is nothing and I've taken care of everything? Again, all related to ADHD. Why do I need everything on the surface, and why can't I just put things into drawers? Like, why does it have to be on the table or on the desk? Like, why can't I just put them away? And why don't I message people back on time? Like, why is this such a difficult thing? Like, seems almost impossible at times. No matter how much I schedule it into my day, I have to message this person back. It just slips from my mind if I don't put it into my to-do list. Why can't I remember things if I don't put them into my to-do list, Like, why does it have to be in the list? Even though it's something I do every day, if I don't put it in the list, I'll forget about it. So, all of these things that were like just a little bit on the outside and a little bit kind of poking at me saying, why is it like that? Like, why can't I just do it, And so I was so grateful that my friend did say those things to me, and she did diagnose me that way, because all of a sudden, all of these missing puzzle pieces that were just kind of just one-offs here and there, like I had the full picture almost, but there were like 10 or 15 puzzle pieces that were kind of missing in bits here and there. And it kind of was, I had kind of the full picture, but not fully. And I was looking at it, I'm like, but this doesn't make any sense. And all of the puzzle pieces are kind of suddenly falling into place. And that kind of self-knowledge, this is causing me to feel even more comfortable with myself and even more grateful that I am who I am. Now, I'm not saying that, I don't want to start kind of playing this thing about, oh, but like this is what makes up me, and this is how I am, so you're just gonna have to accept me. It just helped me accept myself, and it helped me understand that I can actually have a conversation with another person saying, hey, you might notice that I don't actually reply back to your messages on time. This is something that I do, and I've been trying to, this is something that's because of my ADHD and autism, and I wish that I could fix it, but something that I'm having a hard time fixing. So I hope that you can understand, right? And just having that kind of understanding of myself is making me realize that, of course, we're very complicated creatures, but we're so much more complicated than we actually realize. I thought I knew myself, and then suddenly this plops into my vicinity, and my friend's like, hey, this is what's going on with you. And all of a sudden, all of these things that I knew about myself were not things that I knew about myself anymore. It kind of revealed a deeper layer to me that I had never known existed. So I'm not saying that all of you should go and get yourself diagnosed as autistic or on the spectrum or with ADHD or whatever. I'm just saying that it could be a high possibility, because I have noticed that a lot of people who are INFJs are on the spectrum as well. And I'm not saying 100% of INFJs are like that, but I would notice that a lot of them are there, because it kind of, melds together. And also, if you're a female INFJ, a lot of times, or a woman INFJ, a lot of times it does result in that, because if you identify as female, it kind of results in that females are taught to hide themselves, their real selves, and they're taught to placate others and to kind of mold themselves to fit the paradigms of society much more than men are, much more than the males are. And so if you're a female INFJ, it's highly likely that you've been doing this all your life and not realizing that you might be on the spectrum, because you just kind of blended into your environment because you're so empathic, and you're an emotional person in terms of you are emotionally intelligent, and so you're able to kind of gauge what the situation needs and move along with it, even if it doesn't make sense to you, you know. Like, I would do certain things because I knew the situation required it when I was a child, and even now, not knowing why I'm doing it, but knowing that feeling wise and emotional situation wise, I had to kind of do this particular thing. I hope that makes sense. And so, you know, I do recommend that you read up on it. And you know, I also realized that my sister has ADHD, and she's an INTJ. And one of the things that I did read, that it might be that it's actually the spectrum is actually hereditary, because I do imagine I can see traits of that in my mother and father for sure, and a little bit in my brother as well. So I think it might be a little bit hereditary. I have no idea anything about it. I don't know the genetics behind it. I don't know how it functions, how it works. I haven't gone that deep into it yet, but I do recommend, as I said, if you have the chance to look into it a little bit more and figure out if that kind of applies to you or not. It doesn't necessarily have to, but I do know that it was a godsend for sure. It did help me realize a lot more about myself, and made me a lot more comfortable with myself, being socially awkward, being awkward in other ways, and realizing, oh, it's okay. You know, it's just who I am. There's nothing to worry about. I'm not broken in any way. I'm not imperfect. I mean, I am imperfect, but not in that way that I need to fix something. So this video is already very long. If you have particular questions about this, let me know and I'll do another video. And I hope that you have an amazing day wherever you are. Bye for now.